Now, speaking of libs and the former Liberal government, Scott Morrison, I know he's got a book to sell. That's great. We've all got books to sell. And so he's, got some publicity out there. But he's now, I don't want to paraphrase, and I don't want to treat the topic insensitively, because what he's basically referring to is some kind of mental health or depression, or in his words, he got depressed to the point where he didn't want to get out of bed in the morning. Now that might be a bit of hyperbole to sell his book, or it might be the truth. If it is the truth, then I'm sorry, he should not have been Prime Minister. And if he had struggled to get out of bed in the morning to do his job, I remind you that people like Margaret Thatcher survived on 4 hours, legendary, of sleep, because she was so eager to get up in the morning because she had a nation to run, and stayed up late at night to do so. If the Prime Minister can't get out of bed in the morning, he shouldn't be doing that job. And in the middle of the pandemic, for Morrison to be struggling to get out of bed because he found the criticisms of the opposition and the media, people like ourselves, too much to take, well, I'm sorry, he should have stood down. I think it's unacceptable to now be going, oh, well, I was under terrible stress, I couldn't cope.
Well, he didn't step down. He appointed himself secretly to 5 different ministries. Yes. Was it 5, James?
Yeah, no wonder he was overworked. No wonder he was overworked.
That would overwhelm everybody.
Well, not only that, he also, while he was appointing himself to all those different ministries, he was also basically handing over responsibility for the pandemic to the premiers, who of course, then went completely nuts, particularly, of course, Dan Andrews, but also, Gladys Berejiklian here in New South Wales, South Australia, WA. I mean, come on, let's remember that nonsense. Let's remember Queensland. And so there was no actual sort of leadership at the top, again, to go back to those sort of liberal principles that we talked about, to say that, we should have some, respect for liberty rather than just locking people in their homes and ignoring. Let's remember, there was a whole pandemic plan on the shelf.
Yes.
Tony Abbott had worked on it when he was health minister, and we just ignored it.
Well, we had Bridget McKenzie just on with Andrew Clennell before, and she said the history will be kinder to the Morrison government than the electorate and everyone else has been. I think she's wrong there. She keeps talking about we got the country through the pandemic in great shape. No, we didn't. No. We absolutely
look at the budget that's going to come down
freedoms.
In May.
We are all paying the price now. Of those reckless economic policies, the largest,
just one which we'll talk about later with Alex Antic, who'll be on the show, but the Supreme Court in Victoria has now found that the policies that the Victorian police had to their own members who were insisting on vaccine mandates and so on, the Supreme Court in Victoria has overruled that one particular case. But Rita and James are correct in that the shambolic management or mismanagement of the pandemic was because the premiers were out of control. They had all the money in the world they wanted and no restrictions on them and no leadership from the top. And that is my point. If he was incapable of leading from the top, he should have put someone in who was prepared to lead from the top. And that was to Australia's detriment that the Morrison government just let the premiers run around.
You say he let the premiers run, right? Yes, the premiers did as they wished. But it was really Beijing's model that we followed.
Yes,
we followed the Beijing lockdown strategy, just impose these draconian measures. You will eliminate the virus. Remember, we had elimination as a strategy for so long.
Yes.
Despite the fact, from the very start, we knew this virus was going to be endemic. It was going to be around forever. We ignored the obvious to pursue this craziness.
Well, and then we just said, let's just have Josh Frydenberg hit the go button on the money printing machine here. And so this is where we are now. We're about to have this budget handed down, in a couple of weeks' time. They're going to be dumping more money into all sorts of industries, whatever. But where we are now economically, we've got inflation that's sticky. We've now got talk of the RBA hiking and not cutting rates. We've got household income and standards of living that are slipping backwards at a rate of knots. The only thing propping up the GDP overall is a ridiculous hyperinflated immigration policy to cover up the fact that we are in an absolute real recession. And this is all largely due to the fact that we shoveled all of this money out into the economy, and now, of course, we're paying the price for it. You cannot just do this sort of thing. The economics were so clear at the time, but instead they said, no, we'll just scrap the pandemic plan. We'll go to the Chinese route. We'll pay everybody to stay at home, and nothing bad will ever happen. Well, I'm sorry. Here we are.
Yeah, exactly. And now Morrison is telling us he couldn't get out of bed.
If only there was.
Hang on. Oh, yeah. Would there have been a TV show with?
Maybe on a Sunday morning. I don't know. Insiders? No.
But instead of perhaps listening, they wanted to pull us into a Senate hearing and berate us.
and defame us in the Senate.
misinformation.
Absolutely. Yeah, we were misinformation. Absolutely. Yeah, there you go.